What's up, guys and gals, and welcome back to another Division 2 video. If you happen to be new to the channel, then ground and pound that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on post notifications so that way you know each and every time a new video is uploaded or a stream goes live. All you have to do is reach up there, trigger that bell, and you'll never miss a notification when it comes to a video or a live stream. But anyways, it's been much asked of me, or it's been asked of me a lot on either other videos or basically the previous video that I did before Title Update 3 when it comes to the talents of Bloodsucker versus Unbreakable. And it seems like all over social media that there's kind of, I guess, an uproar, so to speak. A lot of people are voicing their opinion saying, oh, it's the Nomad from Division 1. Okay, Division 1 and Division 2 are two separate games. Yes, one is the second part of the first part that has somewhat of some correlation, but when it comes to certain mechanics and playstyle of the second, it is totally different from the first. So you're comparing apples to oranges. Of course, some aspects of certain talents are going to be similar to talents from even other games, but in this case, Division 1. It's kind of like the same way as someone puts a little twist or a spin on a similar build and puts it out there, and then you got people will comment saying, well, why did you copy such and such? And then you're like, well, as far as I didn't. We're using the same weapon, but that person is not using the same talents as I am, and our play styles are different. That's what makes it similar but different. And so we're going to go take an in-depth look at Unbreakable and Bloodsucker. First, we'll start with Bloodsucker. Now, if you don't know what Bloodsucker is, I'll go over the talent, and then also I will be demonstrating and going over exactly what can cause that proc. Now, in my opinion, if I had to choose which one was more like, I'd say, similar to the Nomad of Division 1, then I would say Bloodsucker is more and similar than Unbreakable when it comes to Nomad. Because Unbreakable, yes, you get 70% only in the ODZ or PvE, but in the normalized you only get 25%. So when it comes to Unbreakable, they only get that buff, that 70% at the end of their armor. Bloodsucker, you get additional, meaning added on to what your existing armor is, or likewise you can get that buff with no armor, that proc. And if you're utilizing Patience, you get those procs stacked on top of other procs, so which is actually more like Nomad. The more procking, which is consistent with Nomad, or just one proc. We'll let you decide. So as mentioned before, if you do not know what Bloodsucker is, Bloodsucker, that we're going to start with first, the basis is that once you deplete an enemy's armor, it grants you a 25% buff in your armor, depending on how much armor in your health pool that's added on to it, and then can stack up to 6 times for 10 seconds. So, as you'll see and me demonstrate in the video, you don't have to have, in other words, you don't have to shoot at NPCs or players to take their armor off to get that proc. No matter what you're using, skills, grenades, it doesn't matter. You're always going to get that proc if you take their armor off. And also, a direct correlation with Bloodsucker is the two-piece True Patriot, as I have it on here, as a direct correlation and descendant of the Chupacabra build that I had out months ago, more or less, I guess, in my little fortune-telling, looking into the future of what things were to come. So you get 10% damage to armor, so you're shredding armor off faster, so that way you get your procs faster when it comes to Bloodsucker. But here's the grenade, and I'm on survivalist, so I don't really do that much damage with the grenade, so it takes quite a few, so just bear with me. So at the third one, you can see the proc prop up on the screen, and then of course another grenade. I get an additional proc on top of that. Now picture that in a squad of people running, or just 2 people running Bloodsucker versus a squad of Unbreakable. Because no matter what, let's say, as my friend here will demonstrate, they healed up a little bit, they get back into cover after you've taken off their armor. And if you don't proceed to push up on them fast enough, then it doesn't necessarily matter, because all you have to do is take off that armor again. Even if it is 1 bar of armor, then you're still going to get that proc. So take that in consideration. You take off somebody's armor, they jump back into cover, they put their chem launcher at their feet, and they gain just a couple bars of armor. You take it off, then you are getting an additional proc, and that can happen within that 10 seconds of the first proc, because in PvP, 10 seconds is an eternity. And that's just against one other player. While one's retreating into cover to heal up, let's say, and there's another one, then that's another proc you can get off the second player while the other one's healing up. You finish off that one, and then that proc is lasting on you long enough to where the other one engages back into the battle with you. So you have that armor stacked on top of your current armor. And since that is more similar, in my opinion, than Unbreakable. Because Unbreakable, you get 1 proc of 70% that comes at the end once your armor is all depleted. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to deplete someone's armor faster with this setup and have your proc on top of what armor you have before Unbreakable is going to proc. So you're getting armor at the beginning. If they jump back into cover, or you get another player coming in, you get that proc off them. You can have multiple procs throughout your whole entire armor cycle, all the way down to your armor is depleted completely, and build it back up. Versus that other player that only gets that 1 proc, I believe, is every 60 seconds? So every 60 seconds versus multiple procking. So which is more similar to Nomad? Ponder on that. Multiple procs throughout your entire armor pool, or that 1 proc at your end when it comes to Unbreakable. So now let's go over to the Unbreakable. I'm going to switch up my gear, and then we're going to go out there and test it. Now you can see with this Unbreakable build that I have on here, I have 361k armor. Now both talents, when it comes to Bloodsucker and Unbreakable, just as other like Berserk or Unstoppable, are all dependent on your armor pool. So the amount of armor you have will be dependent on the chunk of armor you get in return from the 70% of Unbreakable, or the 25% per proc when it comes to Bloodsucker. So as you'll see, that if someone is running, let's say, the 2-piece 2 Patriot, and you run up against somebody that is, having their Bloodsucker, or if they're on Unbreakable, which is, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to be biased, I try to keep an open mind and look at it from all aspects. I think that Bloodsucker is more along the lines of Nomad than it is Unbreakable. Because Unbreakable, yeah, you get 1 chunk of 70%, as you'll see there. But if someone can keep firing on you, even if you're ducking and dodging, and they're running the 2-piece True Patriot, then it doesn't matter. That 70% is going to get instantly shredded no matter what. But it all is dependent on a person's playstyle as well. Now, if you have the Division 1 mentality to face tank and not utilize what the game has given you as far as cover and the things alongside of patience accompanied with other talents, and that's basically your own fault. If you're standing out there in the middle of a street having that Division 1 mentality, trying to face tank regardless who is wearing what, that is just not really proper or right, or not really using the mechanics that the game has given you. Once again, I will show you Unbreakable, and this time they will stop shooting and you'll just see the first initial proc. And granted, that is 2 people shooting at me at once, so that way we can speed up the process. But you will not see one person trying to more or less go up against 2 decent PvPers thinking that they're Nomad. It's just not realistic at all, unless they're just delusional and just trying to be Superman. I mean, yeah, it can work up against 2 farmers, by all means, but if it's a 1v2 situation, Bloodsucker is more viable on the solo than Unbreakable would be. Because if you're utilizing what the game gives you, cover, and not being out the open with that Division 1 mentality, sometimes you cannot help it. But that's where it comes to situational awareness and knowing your surroundings. If you come into the dark zone long enough, or even if you just stroll in certain areas, you typically kind of can, familiarize the cars, the things that are in the vicinity. And, when players do come up on you, you're not just going to stand there unless you're actually hoping for them to go rogue. But 9 times out of 10, when players approach you, you're going to look around and see what's around you. So that way, if need be, to retreat back into cover. And then if they provoke, a battle between you and PvP, then you have a better chance when utilizing cover than trying to face trade a 2v1 situation. Because if you do that, the 2 is always going to, outfocus the 1, even with Unbreakable. But if one is utilizing their cover and the mechanics of the game, Bloodsucker is going to prevail over Unbreakable every single time. So all these folks on the YouTube sphere and the Twitter sphere talking about, oh, it's the new Nomad. Well, if you really want to look at it from a outside, out-of-the-box perspective, both have similarities of Nomad. One gives you one big proc every 60 seconds. The other can proc every 10 seconds, or really it can proc every time you want it to. There is no time delay as far as the times you can proc a single time, because if you got a whole group and you have, say, a grenade build, and you throw one grenade that's like 400 or 500k on that hole, and you take off all their armor, you're going to get 4 procs all at once. So that's going to be a lot higher and 30% more than what Unbreakable can give you. But going back to, realistic scenarios, if it's like a 2v2, 3v2, whatever the scenario is, that if you play and utilize the mechanics that are given into the game, Bloodsucker is going to win, because you can get procs on top of what already armor you have. You don't have to wait to the end of your armor till all your armor is gone. And along the way, as your armor is being depleted, even if it goes all the way down, you can have up to 6 procs at one time through that whole entire armor lifespan. So if they take off half your armor, you get a retreat back into cover, and then toss a grenade, and it lands on both of them, for instance, and it takes off both of their armor, then you're going to get a 50% proc. And let's say you have patience on at the same time, and if after in cover for 5 seconds, you get in that 5% armor repair and back every second thereof. And if you have those procs still on you, then those bars stay with you. They don't necessarily go away. They will last each up to 10 seconds. So let me ask you, which is more like? But in my opinion, I think both are just as much similar to Nomad as one or the other. So I don't see what the crying and complaining about. There is no new meta.